Hello again. Welcome back to Nain Shorts here in the basement of Physique Magnifique at 387 Grand Avenue in South San Francisco, our home. The belated mind was, cultivated here, and partly within myself and the students that have come after me. Now, at this point in time, I find myself training under another instructor, a guy by the name of GM Bob Gomez of Island Style Kaju Kempo. Now, I'm bringing that up simply because this is the second time you see me in shorts, and that's his logo. Actually, that's his logo too. Now, what does that mean? Have I jumped ships? Have I now moved to a different class? Have I said, screw you, Rick, I'm done with you? I have, but that's not the point. The point is that from the very beginning, from the time that I started training in the Bladed Mind, I was told, go to other schools, explore, see what they have to offer. You might like what they have better. Who knows? I was never told not to. I was never said, oh, this is how you have to do it, and here you are, and then you have to stay here. But I am thankful that I took this long to do so. And here's the reason why. As I started this journey of martial arts a little over 8 years ago now, I had no martial arts experience whatsoever. And after all the conversations I've had with people on colleague conversation, I've now come to realize that I'm a really late bloomer when it comes to martial arts. Most people start when they're like, early years, like 9, 10, some in their mid-teens. But you usually do it until they get to a higher belt or a higher system. And as you can tell, after 8+ years, I'm finally a white belt. Yeah, folks, it took me that long to become a white belt, to become a new student in a system that has a set curriculum, which is Kaju Kempo. Island style Kaju Kempo, it's Bob's iteration of the art itself. So back then, nothing whatsoever. Only thing I knew about martial arts was what I saw in movies growing up in the 90s. Bloodsport and Kickboxer and, well, pretty much any Bruce Lee movie. And all the other kung fu media that I came across that I would watch over and over again because I've always been fascinated by martial arts. But it wasn't until I started training 8+ years ago that I finally started getting a sense of how ridiculous movies are. Because when it comes down to it, depending on why you train, it kind of takes you in different avenues. For me, it was self-protection. That was the goal. And like anyone who has no experience in any system or who's starting out in a new system, there is a lot of basics that you first have to get. There are movements, there are patterns, or simply punches and kicks and blocks that you do have to practice, because those things become other things later on in your katas, in your pinyons, or in your techniques, and even the drills that you go through. For me, I had to learn striking patterns, and like I thought martial arts should be, I was doing it hundreds of times a day. I was practicing the moves over and over and over again, going faster and harder every single time. And some of the stretching exercises served a great purpose in that sense, but the other striking patterns, I was just trying to perfect, but I spent so much time focused on the physical aspect of it that I missed all those lessons. So I got a false sense of security, and it became arrogance. And that arrogance had to be put in its place. And then that's when I realized that I needed to start really paying attention to the lessons behind them. Because the Bladed Mind is not a complete martial arts system. It's more of a training idea. It's a process to take in information, and by doing so, understanding yourself. It just so happens that Danny in the military learned from Doug Marqueta the Kiri Tertia. Now, not a lot of it, and definitely not anywhere near the complete system. But enough for Danny to start putting in his own ideas, his own concepts, stripping it down as much as he could, and creating the Bladed Mind. That's where the Bladed Mind was born from. But apart from that, it was born from Danny's own mentality on things, his own experiences. Because then you look at Doug. Again, they Doug trained him early on whenever they were in the military together. But Doug no longer does Pikiti Tertia specifically. He has Marketa Kali. His own ideas grew and became what it is today. All the other influence he got along the way. And so you have two people that train similar stuff and grew into different concepts. But ultimately, they both realized that, well, it's 2 hands and 2 feet. There's only so many movements that the body can do. And the Bladed Mind taught me this and taught me the concepts. And when it came to the self-protection aspect of it, I used the Bladed Mind process to learn these ideas on how to protect yourself, how to go beyond the fear of getting hurt and beyond the fear of hurting others. And that's the part that helped me become confident in self-protection. And as the years came by, I became a bit more humble. And I say that very, very strategically, a bit more humble. Because I wasn't that humble. I was still in the mentality of like, oh yeah, that stuff is cute, but it's not what we do, so it's probably crap. I would never say it. I'd be respectful about it, but that's still, there was still a sense of arrogance there that I needed to get rid of. And well, it got beaten out of me eventually. So now I find myself in a place where I no longer look at other people's art and automatically say, well, that's not what we do, or that I wouldn't do it that way, but it's cool. It is a pure and utter learning experience. I've gotten to the point where the levels of understanding that I learned in the Bladed Minds, 1 through 5, are no longer separate entities. 1, 2, and 3, which is gross motion, detailing, and variation, they're now one idea. Different components of that idea, but it's no longer a separate process. Now I look at everything and it's gross motion. Well, I know how I move. I know my body well enough that I can then figure out how I need to move to execute this now technique that I'm being taught. The detailing of it then goes into the why. Why am I doing this? GM Bob is really good at explaining why you do what you do, why he asks you to do things a certain way, because that's where that happens. That's where the details then matter. And then variation, well, punch charts 1A, 1B are variations of each other, but then you can argue that 2A and 2B are variations of the same thing. So now I'm constantly looking at things from that simple perspective of movement, why, and then how do I then change it to become something else later on. And I'm doing that constantly. And here's the thing, folks. I'd love to say that there is no ego, but that'd be a complete and utter lie, because there completely is. I'm confident in what I know. Do I know Kaju Kempo? No, not at all. And that's where humility comes into play, is the acceptance that I am confident in what I know, but I am also very confident in what I don't know. And that section is way, way bigger than my little bit of knowledge on this side. And if that's not a humbling image or idea, then I don't know what is. Because it's easy to go into a class or into even like say a seminar, which is short-lived in itself in the learning process, and do the technique, but then as soon as you start doing it, you're already changing it to what you would do. You start explaining to your training partner, oh yeah, in our class we do it this way and this way. Sure, relatively speaking, it's the same thing, it's just a variation of it. I get that. But are we taking the time to really understand that instructor and figure out why they're saying it that way? Why do they do it that way? What's the reason behind it? And I've come to realization, training with Bob now, a few classes, that it really isn't me studying Kaju Kempo, but it's me understanding GM Bob, understanding his iteration of Kaju Kempo. Because it may not be exactly the way that it was taught to him. And he's told me as much. Look, this is how it's taught. This is how I would later expect you to teach it. And I'm completely okay with that. But it's not necessarily the way that you would use it. I haven't heard a lot of instructors say that out loud. And I'm very thankful to him for that. Now, I'm confident in what I do, and what I do is a bladed mind in the sense of a learning process, and I like to believe that I'm a much better student than I once was, but I still don't consider myself a great student. But yet the learning curve now seems to be a lot quicker because of this process. But I can't take all that credit. And before I start giving credit to GM, I just want to point out why I say that I'm not the best student. Well, it wasn't until about 3 years in that I finally understood that I'm supposed to be paying attention to the concepts and ideas behind the movements, and not so much trying so damn hard to refine the movement so it's exactly where it needs to be. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I don't understand why I'm doing it, then what purpose does it serve? How am I going to advance? How am I going to then grow and be able to use it in application? The basics, the fundamentals, all needed. Every system has them. You need to spend time learning them. But I'm getting now an example with my training partner, who's actually a really good student, and he picks up very quickly. And a lot of that is because he's a dancer. He's an actual dance instructor. That's what he gets paid to do. So he knows how to move. He knows his body very well, and he can adjust and adapt. The one thing that I would say that I have over him is that I've been punched and kicked and thrown several times. So I have a better understanding of what it's like to take a punch, to receive a punch, or even a kick and a throw. So in that way, I can apply that idea of combat to the techniques that I'm learning. Him, not so much. But when it gets explained to him, he gets it right away. So he's a much better student than I am. And I can say now, all the students that came after me have picked up on the bladed mind concepts a lot faster than I. Now, part of that is because the bladed mind has evolved itself, has grown. I don't think Danny even teaches the bladed mind the same way he taught it when I first started. I'm pretty sure it's changed a lot. Even when we talked, the few times that we have trained lately, it's more conceptual, more about what gets across, and then the process, or the more effective process. What the hell was that? Is that a fly? It was huge. Anyways, how effective the process then is in teaching and giving it, and what is needed before we can move on to the next part. So that I've been discussing with Danny, but still it doesn't feel the same way that it once was, or at least when I started. And some of the other students that have started, they're catching on a lot faster. Now, I'm not saying Rick is great. What I'm saying is that he is much better now because he has me as his second, helping the students teach. Because here's the thing. From Danny to Rick to Nain, it has all been filtered. Their experiences have been tacked on, and as they've been given to me, I can see the different types of teaching that I've gotten from both of them. Same material, same playbook, but their understanding of it is to each individual, and that's the thing that I've loved most about the bladed mind. And now, in training Kaju Kempo, I get to explore exactly what that means for me. I can start building my number 5, my level 5 of understanding, which is my way of doing things, my own interpretation of the art itself. I'm comfortable with the self-protection part. I believe that I fare a little bit better, and I say that because realistically, any given Sunday, you can get knocked out. You can get blindsided, somebody can be a bit more aggressive, or you're just having a crappy day and it all goes bad. Or you can just never get into a fight and never have to find out, which is where that's where my mind is at. I'm trying to avoid as much conflict as possible, so I never have to find out. And in that sense, I have successfully kept myself safe and the people around me. Self-protection, don't have to fight, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't want to continue studying. I don't want to keep growing. And being placed in a school setting, in a more traditional school setting, where there is a curriculum, there is a belt system, there is criteria, there is a certain list of things that I have to know before progressing on to the next part. It's set. I can get a booklet and be like, okay, yeah, I need to know all these things. There's even testing, so you can get to the next belt. So that is more traditional in that sense. And the process is so much more fun now because I'm not really questioning anything the way I used to. I'm not questioning whether it's valid or not. My mind is only set on how do I make it valid? How do I make this work for me? How do I do what my instructor is asking of me, all the while expanding my own understanding of it? Doing it justice by doing it the way that it was taught to me, but doing it the way that my body is comfortable doing it. I'm not bogged down by my ego, even though it's there. I'm not bogged down by it has to be done the bladed mind way. I'm learning for me, the individual. And it's so much fun this way. I don't have to battle myself for anything. I can just learn. I can ask questions. It's constant. How do I make this work? How do I better understand the person in front of me so I can better understand the material that they're giving me? Now, I don't know if that's the correct way. I can only tell you that that way is working for me right now, and it's free. There is no pressure. There is no set preconceived notion of what I should be doing. And I'm just taking in the information as much as I can. And I feel that I'm learning much quicker than I would have otherwise. Had I started with traditional arts, I may not be this capable of a student. Once again, I may be going in the wrong direction, thinking that I know what's right, instead of actually exploring and then growing from there, making mistakes, asking the right questions, and then just taking in all the information. And so far, folks, it's been a lot of fun. It's taken me 8+ years, but I'm finally a white belt, and it is a wonderful place to be. There is so much to learn, and I'm looking forward to the journey. I'm still training in the bladed mind, and I still do a little teaching here and there when it comes to sticks, but it was never really about the sticks. It was always about the learning process. Now I'm learning why Kaju Tempo does what they do, and it's really exciting. Before I go, I'd like to say a couple things regarding a couple events that are coming up. So July 2nd, it is Danny's birthday. He is throwing a shindig at his place in Vallejo, I believe it is. And we're also, Rick and I, stealing a bit of time from his birthday party to screen our movie, A Good Fight. And all the other actors whose names I can't recall right now, so I'm not going to try. But it's not just us, it was a collaboration, as well as all the people behind the scenes, behind the camera, who did a wonderful, wonderful job. I personally think the movie came out great, but you have to come out and check it out for yourself and let us know what you think. We added a bit of a gag reel, more of a behind the scenes kind of thing, so it's longer than the initial 10 minutes that the movie actually is, but it's a lot of fun to go back and relive some of the stuff that we had to go through, and the process of learning and expanding and doing our lines. It was a lot of fun. So please, if you can make it, stop on by. More details on Facebook, so you'll be able to kind of follow along. And apart from that, come July 23rd, we're having our second annual Kali Konversation Guest Appreciation Picnic. The first one was so much fun. Everything prior to that was a pain in the ass, trying to set everything up together, and it sucked, but I think we got a little better at it this time around, so it'll be a little easier to put together. But if you can make it, those of you who have been guests on Kali Konversation, please note the date. It will be in San Francisco Park. We don't have an exact location just yet, because they want to make you wait a couple weeks before the actual event before you can book it. So once we do, we'll let you know exactly where it's going to be in San Francisco, but it will be on the 23rd of July. It's a Saturday, okay? So that's a Colleague Conversation Guest Appreciation Picnic. We're going to have a lot of fun. Definitely going to have a raffle, and it's family-friendly raffle. So it's not just going to be blades and training tools like it was at the seminar. It will be actually some fun stuff that anyone could really enjoy. So everyone else who was there last year had a great time. I'm sure that they would look forward to doing it again. And since then, we've had more guests. So we can't wait to have the turnout, and everybody who can make it, please make it. Now, I think that's it for now. It's a lot of fun. There's training. Everything is as it should be as a student. Constantly being a white belt, especially in mentality and primarily in humility. Because there's always so much more to learn. And if we fix our minds that our way is the only and right way, then we're never going to go beyond ourselves, and we're always going to be stuck. But you can get through it. You can learn so much more. So, thank you for joining me on this Nain Short. Till the next one, 3, 2, 1, cut!